The storm crashed against the hull like the fist of heaven itself, and Jonah stood gripping the rail, salt water streaming down his face, watching the black sky split with lightning. Somewhere below, men were screaming. He knew, with a certainty that turned his blood to ice, that this storm had come for him. But 3 days earlier, Jonah had been a different man. He lived in the quiet town of Gath Hepher, in the hill country of Israel, where the olive groves rolled down toward the valley and the mornings smelled of bread and wood smoke. Jonah was a prophet, a man who had heard the voice of the Lord before and had always answered. He was respected, trusted, a man of God. Until the day the voice came again and asked something he could not bring himself to do. "Arise," the Lord said, his voice moving through Jonah's spirit like wind through a canyon. "Go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." Nineveh. Jonah's hands trembled at the name, the great capital of Assyria, Israel's most feared enemy, a city of soldiers who impaled their captives, of kings who boasted of rivers of blood. To Jonah, Nineveh was not a city to be saved. It was a city that deserved to burn. He sat alone that night beneath a fig tree, staring at the stars, wrestling with the command. "Why would you show them mercy?" he whispered. "They have shown none to us." He made his decision before the sun rose. Jonah packed a small bag, left his home before his neighbors had even risen, and walked swiftly toward the coast, not east toward Nineveh, but west toward the sea. He told himself he simply needed time, but in his heart he knew the truth. He was running, not from a city, from God himself. At the port of Joppa, gulls wheeled overhead and merchants shouted over crates of grain and jars of oil. Jonah found a ship bound for Tarshish, the farthest destination a man of his time could imagine, a place at the very edge of the known world. He paid his fare with shaking hands and stepped aboard, telling himself that if he simply went far enough, God's voice would fade behind him like the shoreline. For a while, it seemed to work. The sea was calm. The sailors sang as they worked. Jonah, exhausted from a sleepless night of arguing with his own conscience, went below deck, lay down among the cargo, and fell into a heavy, dreamless sleep. He did not feel the wind begin to change. Above him, the sky darkened without warning. A wave slammed against the ship's side, throwing a sailor to the deck. Within minutes, what had been a gentle voyage became chaos. The sea rising in black walls of water, the ship groaning as if it might tear apart at the seams. The sailors, hardened men who had crossed 100 storms, looked at each other with real fear in their eyes. This was no ordinary tempest. Each man cried out to his own God. Cargo was hurled overboard to lighten the ship. Sacks of grain, jars of wine, all swallowed instantly by the churning sea. Still, the storm grew worse. The captain stumbled below deck, drenched and desperate, and found Jonah still asleep amid the roaring chaos above. He shook him hard. "How can you sleep? Get up, call on your God. Maybe he will notice us and spare our lives." On deck, the sailors, convinced this disaster was no accident, cast lots to discover who among them had brought this curse upon the ship. The lot fell to Jonah. They surrounded him, rain lashing their faces, the mast groaning above them. "Tell us," one shouted over the wind. "Why has this evil come upon us? What have you done? Where do you come from?" Jonah lowered his eyes. There was nowhere left to hide. "I am a Hebrew," he said, "and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land you are standing on." He paused, the weight of his own words crushing him. "I am running from him." The sailors stared in horror. "What have you done?" one whispered, and then, louder, desperate, "What must we do to make the sea calm?" Jonah looked out at the churning black water, then back at the men who had shown him nothing but kindness, men who did not deserve to die for his disobedience. Something in him broke open. "Throw me into the sea," he said. "Then it will grow calm. This storm is because of me. The sailors refused at first. They rowed with everything they had, fighting to bring the ship back to shore, muscles straining, hands bleeding on the oars. But the sea only rose higher, as if refusing to let them escape. Finally, weeping, they lifted their hands to the sky. "Please, Lord," they cried, "do not let us die for this man's life. Do not hold us guilty of shedding innocent blood, for you have done as you pleased." Then they took hold of Jonah, lifted him from the deck, and cast him into the raging sea. And the moment his body struck the water, silence. The wind died. The waves flattened. The clouds parted just enough to reveal a sliver of moonlight glinting on the suddenly still water. On the ship, terrified sailors fell to their knees, awestruck, and made vows to the God who had just saved their lives. But Jonah was sinking. Down through the cold darkness he fell, the surface light shrinking above him until it vanished completely. Seaweed wrapped around his limbs like binding ropes. His lungs burned. His mind grew dim. This, he was certain, was the end. And then, the water around him moved. Something vast, silent, and impossibly powerful rose beneath him from the deep. A shadow blotted out what little light remained, and in one motion, Jonah was swallowed whole, pulled into the darkness of a great fish that the Lord himself had prepared for this very moment. Inside, it was warm and wet and utterly black. Jonah pressed his hands against the walls of flesh surrounding him, gasping, alive, impossibly alive, but trapped in the belly of a creature at the bottom of the sea. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah sat in that darkness. And in that darkness, for the first time in his life, he stopped running. "I cried out to the Lord in my distress," he prayed, his voice trembling in the silence. "And he answered me. Out of the depths I called for help, and you heard my voice. The waters engulfed me, the deep surrounded me. Yet you brought my life up from the pit, O Lord my God." He wept, not from fear now, but from shame and from something like hope. "When my life was slipping away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you. Those who cling to worthless idols forfeit the grace that could be theirs. But I will sacrifice to you with a song of thanksgiving. I will fulfill what I have vowed. Salvation comes from the Lord." And on the 3rd day, the great fish rose toward the surface, opened its mouth, and Jonah was cast out onto the wet sand of a distant shore, coughing, trembling, and gloriously alive. He lay there a long while, feeling the sun on his skin for the first time in 3 days, listening to the gentle sound of waves he had once feared would kill him. Then the voice came again, patient, unchanged, full of the same mercy Jonah had once resented. "Arise," the Lord said. "Go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message I give you." This time, Jonah rose without hesitation. He walked the long road to Nineveh, and when he finally saw the city rising before him, its walls stretching farther than the eye could see, its towers piercing the sky, he did not turn away. He entered its gates and began to walk through its streets, crying out with a voice hardened by the sea and softened by grace, 40 more days, and Nineveh will be overturned." He expected mockery. He expected violence. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Word of his warning spread from street to street, market to market, until it reached the palace itself. The king of Nineveh, a ruler feared across nations, rose from his throne, removed his royal robe, and covered himself in sackcloth. He sat down in ashes and commanded every person in the city, from the greatest noble to the humblest servant, to fast and turn from their violence. "Who knows," the king declared, "God may yet relent and turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish." And God saw their hearts change. He saw a city of enemies humble itself before him, and in his mercy, he relented from the destruction he had promised. The city Jonah once believed deserved only judgment was given, instead, a second chance. Just as Jonah himself had been given one, in the belly of a great fish, in the darkest depths of the sea. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Scripture Stories for more cinematic Bible adventures. Tell us in the comments which Bible story you'd like to see next. And if you'd like to continue exploring the greatest stories ever told, click the next video on your screen now. Thank you for watching, and God bless.